We're now to another conflict. That is the war between Ukraine and Russia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is in Brussels today for a series of meetings touting his new victory plan to end Russia's war. Earlier today, Zelenskyy attended a European Union leaders summit where he demanded more long-range missiles and permission to use them against targets inside Russia, saying that his plan would create, quote, peace through threats. Zelenskyy attempted to turn up the pressure, claiming to have intelligence that North Korea has already sent troops to join Russia's war and is preparing to deploy thousands more.
So we know about 10,000 soldiers of North Korea that they are preparing to fight against us. Because Iran, they gave, drones, licenses to produce these drones and missiles, yes, but not people. Not officially, yes? And here we see this first step in this war, and this is the first step to a world war. Of course, it's understandable.
Well, DW's correspondent Christine Mundwa, she's been following Zelenskyy's visit to Brussels. She told us more about his claims of North Korean involvement in this war.
Well, this is something that the Ukrainians have been saying for a while now, that other countries are getting involved in this war. But on the part of North Korea, the point Zelenskyy is making here is that this marks a significant development in the sense that while countries like Iran have been known to be supporting the Russians with weapons like drones, for example, this would really be the first time where on official basis you have, a third country, so to say, being involved in the war directly. He talked about the fact that the Russians were having a problem with mobilization and having sustained a lot of losses. It made sense that they were exploring other options in terms of beefing up their amount of soldiers and so on the ground. So again, we're still only hearing this as being cited by Ukrainian intelligence. Other countries have commented, but I mean, this would be a significant departure in the sense that it would be the first time we're seeing something of this sort if it indeed materialized.
That was DW's Christine Mundwa there reporting from Brussels. Volodymyr Zelenskyy is also attending a meeting of NATO defense ministers. It's the first NATO summit chaired by the alliance's new head, Mark Rutte, who earlier spoke about NATO's commitment to Ukraine.
That is our message to Putin. We are in this, if necessary, for the long haul. And obviously we want to be in a place where Zelenskyy and Ukraine, from a position of strength, is able to start talks with Russia. But till that moment comes, he can count on continuing support, and Putin cannot count on us letting go of that support. We will keep this going, and this is what we are all committed about. This is what I hear consistently in all my talks in the alliance.
All right, I want to bring in DW's Terry Schultz now. Terry is at that NATO meeting. Terry, good to see you. We just heard NATO Secretary General promising long-term support for Ukraine, and yet we know that Germany and the United States do not agree with key demands by Ukrainian President Zelenskyy. So how firm is the West's support for Ukraine at the moment?
Well, we also know, Brent, that the support that NATO allies have been giving Ukraine has not been enough to give it a significant advantage on the battlefield, not enough to put it in that position that Mark Rutte says needs to be waited for until there could be negotiations with Russia from a position of strength in Kyiv. And so this is one of the demands of President Zelenskyy and his 5-point peace plan. Of course, that plan does start with requesting, as he has now for years, an invitation to join NATO. And countries are definitely not on the same page here. You've got the Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico saying he will never approve Ukraine becoming a member of NATO as long as he's in office. And you've got countries like Estonia, Lithuania saying today, let them in, issue that invitation. So Mark Rutte has an impossible task when it comes to even point one of Zelenskyy's peace plan. And if they're simply going to repeat that the assistance they've been giving up until now will be continued, that's not enough to put Ukraine in this position of power that he talked about.
So Terry, is that the support then that Zelenskyy can expect to get from NATO from this meeting? Is that, things will stay as is?
If I were President Zelenskyy, I would not be so hopeful for more than that, because he knows about the divisions between allies. He's had more success going individually, bilaterally, to European countries, to NATO allies, and asking for bilateral reassurances of support. That way he doesn't have to get 32 countries to come to consensus on what to do for him. At the same time, for example, the UK Defense Secretary just came and spoke to journalists, and he said that he finds it very useful that President Zelenskyy has put these points in a framework. He finds that a fresh approach. He thinks there can be some momentum behind Zelenskyy's demands, but at the same time, when you start with a request for an invitation that you know isn't coming, and you move on there to, for example, finding a way to drop the U.S. ban on using its long-range weapons to strike inside Russia, he's asking for things he's been asking for a long time. I don't see any movement on those key points here at NATO.
You know, there's been a lot of reporting today about Zelenskyy coming to Europe and suggesting that North Korea is getting involved in this war, helping Russia. What was the reaction at NATO when he, pulled that one out of his hat?
We've been asking about that here since those claims came from Ukraine. But even today, officials who were asked on background said they cannot confirm that. I've heard that now from multiple sources, that it cannot be independently confirmed here. At the same time, reports like this are added to those that China is, increasing its support for Russia, assisting its military efforts. So certainly NATO is looking at those with concerns. And today it did have the defense ministers of Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand here for a meeting. So that shows just how holistically NATO is looking at threats from that region.
And if you take this into the future, where does the conversation go from here between NATO and the Ukrainian government? Zelenskyy has a long wish list, and he's not going to get all he wants.
I predict he's not going to get anything he wants on that list today. But this does give them a compilation of what he's asking for, instead of just coming with, demands for more weapons, demands for more money, demands for invitation. So I think it does give them a starting point to continue the conversation. But with so many different opinions here at NATO, I don't think he's going to be happy with the results of his meeting here today. But, we'll be hearing from the Secretary General and the Ukrainian President shortly. So we'll see what Zelenskyy has to say for himself.
And quickly, before we let you go, Zelenskyy, can he realistically expect any change in the status quo before the U.S. presidential election, which is now about 3 weeks away?
You're right to mention that. It seems like everybody's sort of sitting on their hands until then, especially on this request for the use of the long-range fires. We definitely aren't going to see any change on that, perhaps with a new U.S. administration, and you don't know which way that's going to go. But certainly all European allies are waiting for that November date.
Okay, DW's Terry Schultz with the latest from that NATO meeting. Terry, as always, thank you.